This podcast contains detailed plot spoilers, adult language, and mature themes. Listener discretion is advised. Anyways, let's get this sucker started. So welcome to a podcast of Rare Antiquities. Today we will continue to review WandaVision as episode 5 aired today. However, even though I really don't want to start the podcast on a dour note, but Christopher Plummer did pass away today, so I thought I would just give a shout out to the great Canadian actor. I'm not sure if you guys were aware, but...
Yeah,
I was.
General Chang himself, unfortunately.
I was about to say the best Klingon fan could ever hope for.
Yeah.
That's true, but I guess, Jeff, we talked about this, I think, before in one of our shows that I recall. We did cover The Man Who Would Be King, and he played Kipling in that one. And I think we briefly touched upon him as he's probably, I don't know if we could say it, but I think it's safe to say, I think he is probably the best actor that Canada has ever produced in terms of classical actor who's that kind of a legend, like not a superstar in the vein of, say, someone like Ryan Reynolds or Keanu Reeves or whatever, those those mofos. But enjoy those guys too, but they're not actors. This guy Plummer is legit actor. And I don't think Canada's ever produced someone as great as Plummer, with the exception of William Shatner, but that's another story.
Well, and they were kind of contemporaries too, right? They were in things together over the years, right? Outside of Trek.
And it was also, that was all like kind of Shakespearean theatrical plays in Ontario when they were growing up in the 50s and in the 60s. I think that was in the 50s or early 60s. That's when they were kind of going across Canada, putting on shows, and these are professional stage shows, and they were intertwined earlier in their career, and it was fitting that he did play Chang, as you guys mentioned, which, as a Trek fan, that's probably our favorite role that Christopher Plummer ever was in. But I think it would be disrespectful that, if we didn't say anything. So I thought we'd start off by I just want to give a little toast to Christopher Plummer, because he is fucking awesome.
Yep. I'll pour one out for Christopher Plummer.
Yes. Okay. Now that the old fogey's out of the way, we can move on to WandaVision.
What a way to show respect to the man too.
One more blue hair
out of the way.
Out of my way.
That's just a joke.
One last old person I have to push out of line to get my COVID vaccine.
Jesus.
All right. So let's get into WandaVision. So we got our 80s sitcom. I thought instead of today, like what we've been doing before was kind of a very informal review. We could talk about anything at any given time in terms of structure of our show. I thought today, because there was so much that was revealed today, and so much to talk about, I thought if you guys are okay, we do the classical way we approach the podcast, is we'll go through the show in the acts. Like, we'll talk about certain scenes, and then I think that fits because of the twist at the end, or the surprise at the end. So let's get started. So we open the show here. We do get the 80s sitcom, and they show that they're babies. They're Tommy and Billy. They're babies. They have a couple of minutes there. Agnes walks in, and she's, going to help them kind of make the babies quiet. And we immediately get that scene with Vision talking to Wanda and Agnes puts a pause in the whole thing, and it becomes really serious, where, all the humor is kind of gone. But she says, well, Wanda, are you going to rewind this moment? Because you want me to handle the babies, right? So the big reveal here is that Agnes is in, like, we suspected this, but Agnes is in on what's going on. And we'll, learn later. We can maybe talk about this now with Agnes. She has more control or awareness than the other people in this town. And I thought I would ask you guys, who is Agnes right off the bat? So what do you guys think of these scenes and the revelation of Agnes saying, no, Wanda, let's rewind this because you want me to take care of the kids, right?
I think she specifically says, do you want to take it from the top, like an actor would say in a scene.
Yeah.
I will say, actually, like right before we kind of talk a bit more about Agnes, I did like the gag where Vision comes out and he's got the things in his ears.
Oh yeah, and he makes the comment about these are noise canceling headphones.
Yeah, it's just he's got a few lines like that in this episode that I kind of laughed at. But I mean, it was very like kind of 80s sort of like family, like very G-rated banter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, as far as Agnes, I actually maybe I'll go last because I think I'm incapable of sort of separating the theories I've read.
Okay, Jeff,
Okay,
why don't you
so
give us your thoughts?
yeah, well, I mean that what I took away from that is, and I don't know, I didn't get the impression so much that she was in on it, so much as like, I wasn't quite sure when I was watching it, like what was going on. Even though it was like she said, "We'll take it from the top. Like you want to do this again." That kind of language that was breaking the fourth wall of a sitcom. But I wondered if that wasn't so much that she was in on it, so much as Wanda losing control. Because as the episode goes on, it seems to be that she's in everybody's head, and maybe she was losing her grip on that. That was the impression I got from that scene there. But it was certainly, it's almost like they're breaking the fifth wall. Right, because like she's breaking the fourth wall inside the sitcom that they're in, but also to us, which is outside the sitcom. So that it was certainly a very important moment.
No, it was an important moment. I still believe there's more to Agnes than, and I'm sure Nathan's going to say something here in a second, but I think there's more to Agnes than the other people in the show. Let's talk about the rest of the town later when that's revealed later in the next little scene here. But just about these scenes. So Nathan, I'll roll it over to you.
Yeah. So another thing I noticed about Agnes, and this was in the third episode, when she gets serious, there's a general change in like the tone of the show where like there's no more laugh track. And so like there's a weird seriousness to her. The other thing I didn't really realize till a little bit later, and this is kind of with the doghouse, which we'll talk about. She's always kind of appearing when Wanda needs something. And I didn't really, I never picked up on that until like she was there to help with the anniversary, with the dinner, and like a whole bunch of other like little things. And, you know, the first thing I kind of thought of was, if you guys have ever played BioShock, it has like a neat little mechanism where like there's a guy talking to you and he says a very innocuous thing like, would you kindly,
yeah.
And because it's a video game, it's like, yeah, okay, like the progress in the level, I have to go like shoot some guy or open some door or whatever. But then part of the meta narrative is that like, oh, the character you're playing has been brainwashed to respond to would you kindly, but it's very clever because you as the player would just sort of do it. And so it really fascinating. And that's what I started thinking of immediately. It was that like somehow whether I couldn't tell if it was Wanda is truly controlling Agnes or Agnes senses when Wanda needs something. As to who Agnes is, now I'm just going to this is the theory I've read. And this was going a real rabbit hole because this was digging deep into Marvel lore that I'm absolutely not familiar with.
The only thing here is this, from your perspective, you think this is really going to be a spoiler?
Well, we're guessing. You're
because
just speculating, so it's
hard. If it's speculation, that's fine, as long as it's not spoilers.
No, I guess it's not a spoiler because, well, it's a spoiler if it turns out to be true, but this is strictly speculation. The speculation is that Agnes is sort of the MCU equivalent of a character named, it's not Agnes, it's the name again. I just lost it. Anyways, she's like a witch type character that knows, or that's in the comic book Scarlet Witch has gone to for help in the past. Agatha Harkness, I think. Just trying to dig deep on what I read. And the only spoiler thing I will not say that makes me think that might be true is just something I saw in one of the trailers. Now, again, Marvel does this. They do a really good job of like twisting and contorting characters and storylines to sort of meet their need, where it's like, oh, it's kind of this thing, but it's not, you know, and they're also really good at like red herrings. I actually listened to a podcast with the showrunner, and she talked about, like we know that everyone's breaking this down like line by line, everything in the background. And so you have to sort of expect that there's just going to be red herrings at times. So, but I do think that this is an important character to the overall narrative. Now, I don't know if she'll turn, and actually in the comic book, I have no idea if this is a good or evil character, to be told. I didn't really do that much research. I just like, oh, it's a witch kind of thing, right? But I do think it is is interesting that I think that she is playing along in a different way than the other townspeople are. I think that she is in complete control of what she does, but she's just sort of acting the part as opposed to being forced against her will.
Yeah, because it's different compared to the other people in the town.
Right.
But, so now, speaking of kind of control, okay, so now this scene's important with Agnes because Vision is then questioning things more, and that'll hit home more and he'll learn more as the episode progresses, which we'll talk about. But one thing I want to talk about, and we can knock these characters out of the park now, is the kids. So we see the babies here. Then all of a sudden they grow right in these opening couple of minutes here. They become 5. And even in the opening credits there, which we'll get to in a second, you see that they are now 5 because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candles. So they are 5. And then later in the episode, they become 10 with respect to them getting that dog or wanting to have the dog or whatever. So let's talk about the kids now. The important takeaway I had out of this is that she couldn't control them even when they were babies. She couldn't stop them from crying until they got a pacifier, in which babies would naturally stop crying. And later it feels like she can't stop them from even, like she's not really wanting to stop them from asking questions, but even if they're uncomfortable for her. But what the takeaway I had out of this is she has no control over these kids. So does that signify something? Or is it that in her, whatever this reality is that she's concocted, she doesn't want to impose that kind of limit on whatever this is? So are they sentient? Are they just part of this reality? Are they real? I mean, I don't even know. I thought I'd ask you guys.
I think what it signifies there, because she can't control them when they want to age from 5 to 10. And when later, after the dog dies, it looks like they want to do it again to get through the grief. And she stops them, but she doesn't stop them using her powers. She stops them by talking to them. Because you can see she knows she can't control them. So to me, what that means is that they're real. They exist. She gave birth to them. Whatever the mechanics of that is with using Vision's version of DNA or whatever is going on there, she gave birth to them, so they're real in this. She doesn't have control over that. Yeah, that's what I took away from that.
Maybe, but another point that came later in the episode, which we'll get to when they're talking about the MCU part of it, the outside the real world, is they reveal that this has all been 9 days in total up to this point. Right. So in 9 days, she was able to get pregnant, have birth, and now they are aging. Right. So I guess anything's possible in terms of you're talking about maybe software because of Vision. I mean, we don't know. We don't.
But she creates them with her powers. But she's created the way I saw it. We'll see how it plays out. Is she's created this reality, but she's also I feel like there's a reality to her having given birth to these children, and they are real. It's a product of her reality, her powers, but they exist. They're not a construct in her mind, right? They're real.
But it's interesting though that they can't be controlled by her powers the way everything else in this, because it's not just that she created them in this reality. They are the only ones who have been created in this reality, right? So seemingly born out of her magic in a way, but even something as simple as that, they won't go to sleep. It's one thing to control their thoughts or whatever, but just a simple, hey, go to sleep. That would seem like a very simple thing, and they can't even do that, which actually got a pretty good laugh as the babies kind of laugh, and she's like, hey, that's not funny, and I kind of chuckled at that.
Yeah. The only thing I'd like to say though is that if she wants this family life, I agree with you. If they're real, that's fine, and I think most likely because they're extending these Marvel phases, these two kids, if they survive this series and they are real, they'll be part of whatever future phases that'll be in Marvel. But the only thing I would contradict you guys on this in terms of them being real is why would Wanda want to rush all of this? The minute they're born, you would think that as a mom, she would want to cherish those moments. Now, I know she has no control, and that's maybe the outcome of why it's not her fault. She wants to maybe keep it this way, but she can't because, of something. That's why we don't know what those reasons are. But if she's able to control any of this, why would she want to rush them being babies? For just
I think that she can't control them. She can't control them, and she might not know. She seems to be less aware inside this reality than she was outside. But if she can't control these two creatures, then she doesn't want to rush it. But she can't control.
I think there's still an element of where she is kind of in control, but also I think that there's still an outside force that is somehow making this possible. We'll get to it later in the episode. I think there's a couple of allusions to that. I think we'll actually maybe have a bit of a clearer episode in the next episode, because I do wonder if they're working on, because it's 9 episodes. I wonder if they're kind of working it as like little like mini arcs where each 3 episodes is its own, like, act 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Because I'd be really annoyed if there's like essentially no antagonist, and up until episode 9, then there's, I don't know, whatever, MODOK comes in or something ridiculous like that. I want to kind of harken back to, there wasn't, I think it was episode 2, when I thought it was really strange. People are chanting for the children. So is there something that, now I don't know, I'm totally unfamiliar with Wanda's children in the comic books. I know they like grow up to be superheroes and stuff. I have no idea if that's the plan here or not. I do kind of wonder if there's an element of she's made some kind of deal or whatever where it's like, oh, okay, well, I can get Vision, but then I'm going to have these 2 kind of like super babies. Like, she didn't really know, like a bit of a monkey's paw scenario where she didn't really know what she was getting into. And because there's even a line later that sort of seems to indicate that she's not fully aware of everything that is going on, even though she's like, well, this is my home now. This is where I live. I have everything that I want. But she may not be fully cognizant of what's actually going on.
I get that impression too, actually. Like, at least when she's on the inside, it seems to me that she's somewhat subservient to the reality there, whether she's created it fully or there's some outside thing. Like, when she came out for those scenes, I know we haven't really talked about that. When she came out for that one interaction there, she seemed fully aware of everything that was going on. But for some reason, when she's on the inside, it feels like she maybe, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but like part of her awareness is blocked off. I don't know if you guys get that or not.
She literally says
at the end, at the end of the episode, she has a line.
Yeah, she says,
I don't know how this started.
I don't know how this started.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, okay. But does that mean, okay, she didn't know how it started, but does that mean that she continuously has blinders on? Or she didn't know how it started, but she's fully aware now, but doesn't care and is going forward?
I think as we progress through the story, I think we'll kind of, and actually there's a couple things a little bit further down the line this episode that happened that I think deepen the mystery of and add some layers as to what's going on, but it's a little more nuanced than, oh, I just want Vision back sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm in a weird reality. I think there's a couple other things kind of going on here.
Okay, so why don't we move on before we dive into more of the meat of the episode. So at this point, we have the Family Ties opening sequence here for the sitcom. So I know, Jeff, you probably had predicted or mentioned, I think it was you, Family Ties might be one of the possibilities for the 80s sitcom. I thought I'd get your guys' take on what you saw there. Did you dig it? Did you like the old flashback photos in the same vein as Family Ties? Yeah, guys, just go ahead and talk about it.
Well, I like the theme song. That was great. Like Young Vision, I got a real kick out of that. That was
one thing I wrote down here is that would have been an interesting opportunity for like a goofy picture of Tony Stark and Bruce Banner holding a baby funny. Vision.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
Right? Since they're really the parents, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and Ultron too could have been there.
Yeah, that's right. That
would have been great. Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
There was something really clever that they did do when they show. There's actually a number of clever things I want to talk about, but the one attention to detail that I really liked was when they're showing the photos of Wanda, and there's 2 photos very specifically. One where she's like very young, and another one when she's kind of a teenager. It looks like she's in an old bombed out ex-Soviet city with its like concrete and spray paint everywhere. It's like, that is a great attention to detail. That's what Sokovia was. The other thing I liked, because I was wondering how they were going to handle this, because I felt like there was no way they couldn't acknowledge it in some fashion. But in addition to the family ties-ness of it which was so on point, there's a lot of Full House in this opening, which just with her being the younger sister of the Olsen twins, like they just couldn't, like they could never have the Olsen twins in here. I like the whole thing with twins and whatnot, that's just part of the character. But because of Elizabeth Olsen, they're like, well, how do we acknowledge it without doing it in a way that brings you out? And like a lot of the scenes where they're outside with the kids and running around and stuff, like that really reminded me of the Full House opening bit.
So I never watched Full House. So there was some of this was parodying Full House, or was it more Family Ties?
Well, it's actually like a combination. So it's Family Ties. The photos are right from Growing Pains.
Or that's Growing Pains. Yeah, that's probably.
Yeah.
I thought it was Family Ties.
I think the Family Ties, I think they did maybe use that at some point, but the Growing Pains, I remember that specifically with the photos of all the because even the adult characters would be like over time. But Family Ties, like, was it always the drawings that they would paint it in?
I thought it was Family Ties, but I could be wrong. I should have.
No, that part
was Family Ties as well. Yeah.
No, it is. I just thought that like over time, I just wonder if they changed it. No, it's all the scenes where they're like outside in the grass and running around and having a picnic. That's all very Full House-esque.
Okay. Maybe.
I was never a fan of Full House. It was on. It was a thing that I would just watch sometimes.
No, I wasn't a fan either, but I watched it all the fucking time.
Yeah, but I just like that's all the acknowledgement that you need of Elizabeth Olsen's link to that without it like being so fucking obvious that it takes you out. I think that was all the tip of the hat you needed to the Olsen twins, I think.
See, I see what you're saying. I one of the things that I was disappointed with there is this didn't feel enough like any particular sitcom. It was too generic for me.
You mean the opening or the episode in which
the episode? The opening was the best part of the homage. That was great.
That's right.
And I know that we're starting to bleed more into the MCU reality. So it's going to be less and less sitcom-esque, and that's okay. They need to like make that transition. But I felt that the sitcom scenes here were far too generic. I like the fact that the house, like they just keep using the same house and updating it decade over decade. Like I think that's really clever. That's great. But
the kitchen with the door being the way it was, that reminded me of Family Ties. Because the Family Ties, they had that kind of door in the kitchen. That's what I remember.
Yeah. I think a lot of sitcoms had that kind of door, not just Family Ties, but
I guess so. You're right.
Yeah,
I guess so.
It works. Yeah. Like the set's great. Like the set design is one of the most genius things that they did on the show, because they're able to adapt that whole design for each decade, and it fits perfectly with each iteration of the sitcom. But the sitcom today, this week, the sitcom itself was the most generic of all of it.
It looked like it was genetically engineered to look like 1990 from our point of view, right? Because you know how like the 90s, like 1990, 1991, when you look at TV shows, unless you know specifically the year it came out, it's like, it could be like 1988, but it could be 1992.
Yeah.
And so it had like that vague, that 80s look. Like it didn't look like it was 1985. Or
it was very transitional 80s, 90s.
Yes. Like it was, it was too generic. I thought they had a real missed opportunity with not including like a nod to Elf, which was like one of the biggest sitcoms of the 80s. Like they could have just had Howard the Duck in there for no reason. Like that would have been good, because that would have been funny.
Marvel character.
Exactly. But make it like a dumb, like Elf, like puppet on like a death trap set.
Oh man, that would have been
great. Yeah, that'd have been interesting.
And that's what the kids would have in the sink. It'd be Howard the Duck. That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome. Okay, well, why don't we keep moving forward, because we're already 34 minutes into here. We have so much more to cover. So let's now talk about the outside world with Rambo and the Forces of Freedom, which is Sword. So, I got to throw shit like that in there, right? So why don't we combine is it Monica Rambo, right?
Monica, yeah.
Monica. So why don't we talk about Monica and her scenes with Jimmy Woo and the rest of the Sword folks? And we have some reveals here. They have that kind of military powwow meeting. And then later she also has this scene just with Jimmy, I believe. And there's a confusing scene for me with her dealing with the clothes. And, there's a little hint that she has some resentment towards Captain Marvel, and the pants are Kevlar because she went into the reality with the Kevlar bodysuits, and then her clothes generated as Kevlar. I'm sure that's going to be a nugget for later in future episodes. But then the more important stuff that I wanted to talk about that interested me was what the Sword meeting revealed, was that they confirmed Wanda's controlling everything, at least from their perspective. There are thousands of hostages in that town. So Nathan, you were talking about those are real people in a town. That has been confirmed. It's not just a few, it's thousands. And we see video evidence of her stealing Vision's body 9 days ago. And they have confirmed that she is somehow, at least from their perspective, have resurrected Vision, and he is now alive. But the funniest thing I got out of all of this was that Vision had a will.
Yeah.
He had a last will and testament. He says, I don't want this to happen. I don't want to be used as a weapon. So I found that kind of interesting. So I thought I'd, have you guys talk about all of the scenes here, including the Kevlar clothes. Nathan, your thoughts?
Well, I think the Kevlar clothes thing, I don't think it's that complicated. I just think that because we sort of saw this with, I think it was the last episode with the beekeeper guy, when the rope kind of got cut off and it turned into like an old school skipping rope. Mm-hmm. Like it's been metamorphosized into something else, but it still somehow retains its normal properties. I guess, I don't know. It's Marvel. It's comic book science, right? So I think it's just shorthand for.
Well, it's like stuff needs to look different, but it's still made up of the matter that it came into with. Right?
But it's not a visual. It's not entirely a visual illusion. It's as though it actually has been transformed, and it is that thing, but it also still retains its old qualities, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and very quickly, there's beef there. Rambo and Captain Marvel. I don't know what's going on there, but I feel like that's the thing that like Marvel does. Like it drops these little nuggets forward later. I don't think we'll ever come back to that unless Captain Marvel actually shows up in the show.
But it could happen in the next Captain Marvel movie because it implies
that's what I mean.
Like she's never come back, right? Like that little girl, Monica's the little girl. Like that was her hero, and then she left, never came back. Her mom died, and where was she this whole time? Like. Exactly. Like her mom, that was her best friend, and she never came back. So
she was just off saving. There. Yeah, she was just off saving thousands upon helping.
But she didn't know that. But she did. She hadn't. She wouldn't have known that.
But she's a member of SWORD. If SWORD's dealing with intergalactic issues, you would think she would know that.
Not necessarily.
She's only human.
Because nobody.
Human, right?
Nobody ever knew about it.
No,
right?
I call a spade a spade.
Yeah, yeah, I know, but you, I don't know that you know what a spade looks like, so I'm not entirely sure.
Oh, I know spades. That's all I get. That's
no, I think Jeff's right. Where this is just like a little nugget they're going to drop in for Captain Marvel 2.
Yeah,
or the Miss Marvel TV show, which will be coming out on Disney Plus. Also takes place in New Jersey. Does this have anything to do with it? Who knows? Just thought I'd bring that up. The one thing I note, I did actually kind of laugh at two things I kind of laughed at. Jimmy Woo, I love this guy. Like, he needs to be in more movies. And actually just overall the trio interaction between Woo and Darcy and Rambo, I think it's good. It's fun. It's poppy. It's very MCU. I did laugh at the will thing for Vision. What I took out of that, and I paused the video to look at what SWORD was doing. They had Vision's body completely pulled apart.
Mm-hmm. They did.
So I think there's like and actually we'll talk about this with, what's the director's name? Is it Hayward?
I didn't know this at all.
The SWORD. I remember I wrote it down, but from the last episode. But the SWORD director guy, which I want to talk about later. But so I think she was there because she found out that they were experimenting on Vision against his will and took the body. So it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I want my dead robot boyfriend back. I think it was, I'm rescuing him or recovering his body. Because again, sentient weapon, something or other, right?
Sentient weapon, something. Yeah.
Yes. And so like that fits Vision perfectly, right? Sentient weapon.
That's right.
And he's said, I don't want to be someone's weapon. So I do, that's sort of my takeaway there from that scene. I did sort of laugh when they had the little exchange where SWORD director is like, oh, she doesn't have like a nickname. No silly nickname, which I can actually tell you why that's the case, but maybe it'll make more sense at the end of the episode.
Okay, how about then the other reveals? Like, any comment on that? There's confirmation there are thousands of hostages there, or
it's odd.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's odd because I think, like, as dangerous as Wanda is, I have a hard time believing that she would want to cause that many people that much pain. Because like she didn't kill a Rambo when she threw her out. Like, I mean, if anything, like, I mean, that could have killed her, and it didn't. She didn't kill.
She said specifically, Rambo said specifically, like she could have, but she protected me.
But she didn't, and actually, I think went out of her way to make sure that she wasn't.
That's right.
Like injured poorly. She didn't kill the director of Sword. Could have in a second, right? You know, so I think that the fact that there's like thousands of people trapped here, I mean, I think that's Wanda may not. We never actually had that much confirmation that it was Wanda suppressing these people's minds. I know Norm kind of implied it. I know Rambo has sort of said it, but I don't know. I still think that Wanda wouldn't necessarily do this to all these people. I mean, she's still an Avenger, right? I mean, she only just fought Thanos. So I can't imagine that she's going to go all evil within a matter of weeks.
Okay, the only thing I want to say to that is, I mean, I was going to save it for the end, is when Vision challenges her on that in a later scene. She actually, I want to save that for later. Why don't we let Jeff, you chime in on these scenes here without talking a little bit more on the weeds on that. Just anything with the MCU stuff on the outside until Wanda comes out. So don't talk about that yet.
So before she comes out, just when they're doing
they're revealing
Zippy,
and the Kevlar pants and all that stuff, and anything you want to talk about? Anything else you want to add?
The zippy quips? No, not really. I think we covered it. I guess I'll say this: it kind of reminds me of Thor 2, which is not a compliment, which is just generic Marvel zippy quips. I'm feeling it. It's not the show's fault. Feeling it wearing thin, but I felt it wearing thin for many movies now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get it, guys. Thanks.
No, and I have the same kind of feeling. That kind of stuff, those quippy MCU kind of scenes, when they're kind of just in the military compounds and stuff like that, that gets boring after a while.
Very much so. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Vision at the office. So I know at that point he gets that, kind of thought that he needs to kind of do something to that person's mind. Norm was the name. And he finds out that the guy is in pain. He is being controlled. He has a different personality and a different mindset under this false reality. And when Vision's able to lift it, then he realizes he's in pain. He will talk to Wanda about that later. We'll save that for later. But then you get a lot of the other kind of funny stuff, the old the emails and the old tech jokes and stuff. So this is a quick scene. You guys can just
the Commodore 64.
Yeah, Commodor 64. That was fun. Yeah. Any other thoughts there, or you want to talk about that, or we're not much?
Well, it's a good. No, I think it's a good scene. It's quick because it also gives Vision a bit of a portal into reality. Mm-hmm. Like, he sees the message on the screen, and that's kind of what prompts him to do whatever he does to Buddy there, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a quick scene, but it's really important for Vision's revelation. He's starting to get hip to the scene here.
That's right.
It was both funny and really disturbing because they do play it for laughs. I mean, they're doing the email thing and playing that for laughs, and haha, it's great. And then he zaps the dude's brain. He's like, "Where's my phone? I gotta call my family. Like, how long have I gone?" And all this stuff. And Vision has to kind of like put him back where he found him, in a sense. Like, he's got to put him back up on the shelf. And then the dude's...
he plugged him back into the Matrix. So
yeah, he plugged him back into the Matrix, and then the dude's right back in. And they play that for a little bit of a laugh. And it was a dark thing that the Marvel Universe did right there, which is played that guy's pain and mind control for a bit of a gag, like on purpose. I respect that they did it. I actually really like that scene because it was really, really unsettling. So good for them.
Good for them.
Yeah.
I agree. I like that scene. Nathan, any thoughts here, or do you want to move on?
No, I feel mostly the same. But one other thing I want to mention that I really liked, I just want to know if you guys noticed it. And this actually goes back to basically the beginning of the episode where we're going like more or less like full widescreen, even though it's a 90s or 80s sitcom. But another thing they do a lot, and they start doing it more here, is they also break from a lot of the traditional camera shots. It's like right after they read the email and everyone's kind of laughing, and Vision, he's kind of perturbed a little bit. It's like it's a really like a well-framed, well-lit shot. It's just eerie looking because it's still within the sitcom. Norm is acting like an insane person, like because they're reading off about this email about the Maximoff anomaly. Although it is kind of weird, like how did he get that email? I mean, I know it's, and also like, how is that how email worked in the 80s? I don't know.
I can't remember.
I honestly don't remember. Like,
Well, I wouldn't have known. How would we have known?
We wouldn't have known. No, I got internet like in what, 1998, 97.
Yeah,
That's
we got internet in 97, I think. So
yeah.
Email. Oh.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing, like email, because it would have been like user groups and stuff like that back then. I mean, I think email existed in a certain way, but it was more like between universities and like an internal mail system. This is another thing. Like, I think that just sort of showing what my point I was getting at was, it's sort of slowly showing like the breaking down of this reality in a weird way, which is a lot of themes of this episode, in that it's not exactly the sitcom, right? We're actually seeing Wanda get sloppy at certain stuff, right? The camera isn't exactly the same for the era. Things like that I think are just like a subtle way of showing the breakdown, but it's also like a subtle way of meshing the sitcom world with the MCU world. So you're not going back and forth between like 4:3 and widescreens. So
right.
I thought that was just like a nice like technical detail.
Because they still change the aspect ratio though when they go to the outside world.
They do, but they go more like cinematic.
But it's modern,
right?
it's
modern and cinematic, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But it's not. I just find that if you go because when they were moving from 4:3 to widescreen, you'd see a more visible shift. Whereas this, you could actually cut back and forth between the realities.
Yeah, that's right. When they did it before, they actually had to like start in 4:3 and then slowly fade in the aspect ratio. Like they would push the bars out.
Yeah.
Right. They can just kind of cut between now. So it's yeah.
Okay, so let's move on now. So now this is the point where, very exciting point. We've already touched on this a tiny bit, is when the drone comes in and Sword says, let's just take a shot. The director says, take a shot. I don't think they ever got a shot off, or they might have. But then at this point, Wanda comes out and challenges everybody there and says, get the fuck out of here. This is my home. And if you come in here again, she gives the hint that she's going to wipe them all out. The other important thing here for me is that the director and Monica are telling her, hey, you've got a whole town under hostage. You know, you're controlling it. She doesn't deny it. And she doesn't care about the hostages. And that's actually, you know, there's more proof that she doesn't care in the later, or seemingly doesn't care as much later, when Vision challenges her at the end of the episode. But I thought here is that these scenes here are now painting her to be a little bit more of a villain and less sympathetic character. I know she's going through grief. I don't think that they're making her to be the next MCU villain or anything like that, but that's the risk here, is that now she is being painted as she doesn't care. There is the hint at the end that she didn't start any of this, but now she doesn't care. So I thought you'd get your guys' thoughts on this. It was a fantastic scene. I dug it.
It was. One of my notes that I wrote was, not a good idea to shoot an Avenger, because only bad things can happen to you. I assumed that they did try to shoot her with a missile, which kind of goes to my idea that Sword was trying to do something hinky with Vision's body, and Hayward, or whatever the fuck his name is, was trying to basically just cover that up by saying, okay, we're just going to blow her up now. And I thought, this was a fantastic scene. Her accent kind of came back a little bit. The character's accent has been, not just the show, but like the movies, it's just been all over the place. But I thought that this was, like, you really see like the danger that she presents, as far as like her not caring about the people in the town. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because I can't quite square it with the other things in my head of, you know, she wouldn't willingly do that. But you are right. She seemingly doesn't care at this point. Or I don't know. Like, is there? I'm trying to justify like a hero character kind of doing this, right? But I don't know. It's sort of hard for me to square that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Harry. Like, it seemed like they seem to be playing her as more of a villainous role with this scene, more specifically as the good guy turned evil. And I thought that was, like, for me, that was really effective. It's kind of like, it has shades of the Dark Phoenix saga, right? From X-Men, where what's her name? Jean Grey.
Jean Grey, yeah.
Yeah, like she's the good guy, but she slowly becomes the villain. And it's not because she's evil inherently. It's just because like something happens, like she has a break, she suffers a trauma, there's tragedy. And so with that much power combined with that much grief is a terrible fucking combination. And something bad's going to happen. And that is still what I think is a large part of what's going on with her. And when I saw this scene, that's what I read. She doesn't want to hurt anybody. She doesn't want to destroy reality. But what she does want is what she wants. And as she said, I have what I want. And basically, leave me the fuck alone. And she demonstrates her power. Like, you don't leave me alone. What's going to happen is I'm just going to turn you to orange juice or something with bullets. Like, I will fuck you. So fuck off. Because she's an Avenger, like, she holds off from, just ruining this fucking guy's life. She doesn't wreck anybody's shit at this point, but I feel like she's ready for it. And that's why I really love this scene, is because she's on the edge. She's just like Jean Grey. She doesn't want to, but she will. Not only she's capable of it, but she will do it. And I think that's the razor's edge that we're balancing on now. And that was my favorite part of the episode.
Oh yeah, no, it was fantastic. We'll talk a little bit more about the idea of grief with her at the end of this episode here. But let's just take a little fun break and talk about the commercial, because this is now in order of the episode. After the scene, we get that nice little commercial break. Nathan, you're going to have to explain this to me. So Lagos. I thought I heard the word Lagos earlier in the episode when they said Germany and Lagos. So something happened to her with Lagos. And the funny thing is the commercial's the paper towel cleanup commercial. And the quote is, when you make a mess, you didn't mean to use Lagos. Or Lagos is that. So what are they referring to here?
Okay, what they're referring to is at the start of Captain America's Civil War. This is the whole thing that kicks off the reasons for not the whole thing, but at the start of Captain America's Civil War, like her, Captain America, Scarlet or Black Widow, Falcon, they're trying to catch some arms dealers. Crossbones is the villain. Anyways, this is the incident where the guy tries to blow himself up in Captain America.
She lifts that guy.
She lifts it. Yeah, doesn't quite contain the explosion, and all those civilians die.
Okay.
And that's the
place is Lagos.
Is Lagos, which is I think we're pronouncing it wrong. It is a real city, I believe, in Nigeria, but it was like civilians plus like civilians from Wakanda as well were killed. So I thought this commercial was super clever, like with all the red liquid representing the blood. And the whole tagline of like, cleaning up messes that weren't your fault sort of thing, because it was an accident.
It looks like a lot of beer was also spilled in Lagos during that event. So that's also a sin, because beer was spilled here and it was needed to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
I think spill all the blood you want, but keep that beer in your fucking glass.
That's right.
I think ultimately that's what, like when they dropped all that beer in the market square there. I mean, that was a step too far. And that's why King T'Challa had to like step in and say, no, we got to keep people in check. And that's why Tony was on board. Tony's like, nobody's spilling beer on my watch.
It's like, whoa. Yeah. That was too far.
Yeah. And that's why, but Cap was all for it, because small side note, this was never in the movies, but in the comic books, his father was an alcoholic. So he's like, spill all that beer on the ground. You don't need it.
In fact, pour that beer out right now.
Yeah.
You're getting a shield in the face.
Actually, I think he does drink in the movies.
Cap? I think he has one beer.
I believe
I think so.
Yeah,
I just remember that was a thing for the character when I read the Captain America comic books. But anyway, that joke, that was a long runway for that one. So that's actually kind of the progression of the commercials is of her life, which is the thing with, because they also mentioned that in the briefing in the, when they've got the all-knowing file on the character that you have to throw exposition out. She was 10 when her parents died, and that was the Tony Stark thing. And then the Strucker watch, so because Strucker would have probably reached out to her and her brother. And then the Hydra soak thing, it's like, hey, well, they're recruited by Hydra at that point. Then the Lagos thing happens. again,
So are we
I
going to get
apologize.
Are we going to get a Thanos commercial then for her? Because that was a big event for her.
Well, I mean, what's the next big thing? I guess in tragedy that's not her brother. I mean, it would be
Well,
Vision dying,
Well,
or
not necessarily. So after that, like there could be the fracture between the Avengers because of Civil War. I don't know if that's much trauma for her. Well, it might have been because they were on opposite sides, right? She was basically being held captive at the Avengers compound and not knowing it with Vision as her keeper, and then that obviously broke down there. So that there could be something there.
maybe the whole like Germany fight. I don't know. I feel like that like it's too easy to kind of have like kind of a fun commercial about the Germany fight. I'm sure they'll do something, very 90s about it. I don't know. Maybe, although it doesn't feel like it's a real trauma for her per se. That's why I'm trying to like
it's hard to
figure
say,
out what the next thing is going to be. So,
Well, I would think it would still be Thanos because she still blames Thanos for the death of Vision.
Yeah, but is it too soon for that? Because like
It could
we
be.
got to have those commercials later too. Right?
Yeah.
So like that's the most recent one.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So
Because we got 4
soon?
episodes to go.
Yeah, that'd be
Hard
great
to
if
say how many
Josh.
commercials we'll have.
It'd be great if Josh Brolin was in one of those commercials. So just as Josh Brolin,
Actually, I was thinking just as you were mouthing the words, if Joss Whedon showed up and just was like, "That's trauma."
There you go. Okay, let's move on to save some time because we're already at the 1 hour mark here. So let's get into. So the dog dies here because of these events. The dog had escaped the house through the front door, and the dog dies by, I guess, eating some of the bushes in front of Agnes's house or somewhere. And the kids find out about this, and then their instinct is to grow, and she said to escape the grief. And this is an interesting part of the episode where she's now preaching to the kids, hey, don't run away from this. I want you to deal with the grief. We don't live that way. That's not right. And then they say, you fix things. You can fix death. And she goes, no, I can't reverse death. So what's going on here? This is a hypocritical message to me because she's doing the right thing for these children. And in this reality, it's a fake reality. This is within her grief saying that it's a safe place and we can't do these kind of things. So I get that one aspect. But in the end, from this character's perspective and the audience's perspective, she's cheating all of this anyways by creating this reality. If she did create it to hide in this grief, or is allowing these events to still occur, even if she didn't create it, because of her grief and Vision. Now, you're right.
She's hardly the first person to not follow their own advice, right? I mean, that's...
I agree, but we're not talking about kind of like this Oscar-driven drama here. Like, this is a superhero movie, a show, and you're dealing with a character.
I get that, but I do think they are
people, right? So
I hear it. No, but I think they are intentionally drawing that comparison where this is not the first time in this episode where she's having this. Again, this is a very 80s, 90s heart-to-heart of parent-to-child talk. We're talking about, this is how you deal with problems, right? Because this is where I think that they really, like, in the era of these types of sitcoms, they try to do this a lot. And I think they are intentionally drawing your eye to this fact that, yes, she has created this reality, but she is hypocritically telling her kids to not run from it. But I mean, it's not that's just kind of a thing of human nature that, like you see this flaw kind of within her of how she's trying to deal with this situation, right? And so I think it's a very natural message, I think, but I don't think it's like a result of anything other than they are actually drawing that, I think the writers are actually drawing that parallel for you, and it's almost a little heavy-handed in a way, I found.
I agree with you, Nathan. I'm just saying the risk here is you're making, it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. We don't want our heroes to be paper thin without any layers, and any of our protagonists, right? So this is giving Wanda some layers, which is great. The danger here, though, is because we as the audience see her as, well, she's not, she's not practicing what she's preaching here. that's not good. I look at that and say that's not a good trait, especially when it's a superhero show. Now, it's one thing at the end of the episode of the miniseries, if she learns that lesson, maybe in an interesting way, maybe not a safe way, maybe in a very, I think you mentioned it last week, Nathan, that this miniseries might end in sorrow or anguish or tragedy. And maybe that's the lessons learned she takes away out of all of this. And then she learns that lesson. But here, and then we're going to follow it up with the next scene she has with Vision, it seems she doesn't care. We're going back to this. I'm getting conflicted with what's going on here with this character. I don't know if it's going to be resolved.
Isn't that the point though? Like she's doing it's a classic parental move, which is do as I say, not as I do. Like they're doing that on purpose though. Like
I feel like that is the point, is to give her these layers. And we're also talking about this without all the information.
No, but if we're dealing with the 80s sitcom, the parents did not, I'd say 99% of the time, they practiced what they preached. They were role models for their children.
I don't know that I necessarily agree with that because, I don't know that it ever went this deep, but I think that is a common theme in at least family-oriented shows, whether it was sitcom or drama, is that adults do things that are complex and children don't always understand it, right? So like when you're a kid and you're trying to model the adult behavior, like you do what you see, but you can also only do what you understand. So it's like, well, you fix things. So just bring the dog back to life. And she's like, no, like that's not, it's more complicated than that. Like, yes, it looks that way. Like for her, it's like, yeah, it looks that way, but it's not that way. But the irony is that it is also that way. Like she is trying to raise them properly. She doesn't want them just to be maniacs, be like, yeah, just snap your fingers and everything will be all right. Like she knows that's not the way to do it. But when it's somebody else, even when it's your kids, like it's possible to try to like say, this is how it is. This is the lesson. But in her mind, it's like, yeah, that's the lesson, except my situation is different. So I can make an exception for me. It's the perfect showcase of how that happens in real life, like how adults are towards the children. And it's like, it's fine for you. Like, I'm doing this thing. I know it looks like this, but it's fine for me because I'm the adult. But you don't do this thing. Like, that's how it is in real life. Like, that works really well for me.
So I'm okay with this as an adult show. What I'm not okay with this is if children are watching this. Now, I don't want to get into this kind of children watching MCU and all that kind of shit. To me, it sends mixed messages. I'm a bit conflicted. I enjoy the layers. Don't get me wrong. Because you're right, Jeff. In reality, that's how it is. This is not reality. No matter what we want to do, what we're watching here, Star Wars, Marvel, any of this shit, it's not reality. So, and your format is an 80s sitcom. 80s sitcoms did not do this. So I'm conflicted, but you're right, Nathan, as well. We don't have the full picture.
But again, I would still argue that's almost part of the point of even the show itself, is that she is creating this idealized version and the crap, and actually the whole episode. In fact, the name of the episode, in a very special episode, 80s used to do this all the time. This would be like the drug episode. The
parents didn't do the drug episode. The kids did.
I'm sorry. I just got to interrupt you. Was the title of this episode a very special episode?
Yes.
Because the whole time I was watching this, I'm like, oh, this is a very special episode of WandaVision. Yeah. Oh, I had no idea that was the title. Okay, perfect.
And that is kind of the point. And because also this is the point of the show where the reality is breaking. And now, again, we're also making a lot of jumps as to what's actually going on. We actually don't truly know if Wanda has reanimated Vision. Now, she's obviously not complaining about it. She has some hand in it, in the fact that she took the body.
Didn't they say that she resurrected him? Didn't somebody say that, though?
They had sword people guessing that that's the case, yes.
That's the thing, though. They see him, they see the television, right? They see, it's like, well, he's on the inside. He must be alive. She's in control. She's the one doing all this. She reanimated him. I still contend that there's information that we don't know, because that's the whole point. Yeah. Otherwise, the show can just be over right now. What are the next 4 episodes going to be, right? So I would say that they kind of break it down to like, well, it's a sitcom and it has to have this message. I just think is not the point of the show, and it's not even the point of this episode, given the title, given that we're showing the breaks in reality, and that what she is doing is saying, no, that's not how you do it. and it's revealing that like what she is doing is wrong. And I don't even think it's even remotely ambiguous that is what's happening, is that she is obviously not following her own advice. Like that is obvious. That is the whole point, right? And that's even the problem that Vision is having, is that you should not be doing this. This is wrong.
Right.
And she's saying, what's the problem? Aren't we happy? And that's the point of the show.
Can I just say, 100% agree. And just to hear your point there, where you're like kids watching this, if I can draw everybody's attention, if you guys remember the Tom Hanks episode of Family Ties, where he is a raging motherfucking alcoholic drinking a jar of maraschino cherries, like this is that episode.
He wasn't but he wasn't the parent, man. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, he wasn't the parent, but like
he wasn't a parent.
He wasn't. But
that's what I'm saying.
But but that show did not shy away from these types of tough messages that kids were watching.
I'm not saying that, man. You're not understanding, because maybe you're not a parent. You're not getting it. As a parent,
maybe not a parent. I'm definitely not a parent.
No, okay, but just hear me out here. I'm saying that from the format, the parents were the role models. They were ideal role models. Whether that's deep or not deep, that's what it was. That's all I'm challenging here. And I'm getting mixed messages with Wanda's portrayal now in this episode, because she's a hypocrite, but that's okay. There's layers there. That's all I'm just trying to point out there, is that I got mixed messages here, because she's trying to teach her kids, no, this is not right. We don't run away from this stuff. We deal with it. She's not doing that. But you're saying that's how it is in the real world.
But that's the point of the show, right? That's the whole point.
I know. What I'm telling you is that it's sending mixed messages in terms of the format. But that's okay. I get it. Maybe I'm not getting my point completely across. I'm just saying I'm conflicted with the way they're portraying Wanda here. That's all. Anyways, that's all good.
It is a mystery show. I should point it out. If this was
we don't know everything.
Episode 9. If this was the last episode, and it's I would agree wholeheartedly that like, no, this is, then what was the point? It's
I agree. We're only halfway through here, so in terms of the series. So let's move on. So this leads into the best scene in the show for me. I liked when Wanda came out, but what I thought was the most creative aspect of this episode was when now Vision's challenging Wanda, and he's telling Wanda, well, Wanda, unlike Norm and these other people, you can't control me. And then she goes, no, are you sure about that? I can't. And then she turns and walks away, and the credits start rolling. I don't know if you got that. That was fucking fantastic. Loved it. And then it continued. That was brilliant. The director and the writers there, that floored me. I thought that was fucking fantastic. And then, it's funny, like Vision is really emotional at this point. He's saying he's scared. He's challenging Wanda. She's shocked that he's getting that angry. These were good scenes. And then we get that twist at the end. We get a couple things here. We talked about it already, where she says, I don't know how this started, so I'm here with you. And she's saying that's the truth. And Vision's kind of doubting her, but I believe her when she says that, partially. And then Quicksilver shows up. And the interesting thing here is he's the first class Quicksilver, not Kick-Ass. So what up? Is this... So couple things here. So the Fox rights were bought by Disney, so now they have the old X-Men, all the X-Men films on as part of their library and their rights. So they can use this guy. I'm assuming this is the multiverse thing that's being addressed here, because she's confused as well. The people outside who are watching in reality, like Darcy and so, are confused. He was recast. So what's going on here? To me, it's multiverse. But I also don't know if it's also rights issues, and they couldn't get Aaron Taylor Johnson to come back and play him. I don't think that's the case.
No, if they wanted him back, they would have. They would like, we'll go with Evan Peters. No, the casting of Evan Peters, they know what they're doing. It's very specific.
So Nathan, you go ahead. You talk about this. This is multiverse, opening the door to the multiverse, right? Or whatever it's called.
Well, maybe. The one thing I do want to point out, earlier in the episode, when the director there says, oh, she doesn't have like a silly name or something like that. That was the weird thing in sharing the character. These were like a couple of the characters that Marvel and Fox shared. But the one thing there's two things that Disney or Marvel couldn't do. They couldn't call her Scarlet Witch, and they couldn't call her a mutant. But the Scarlet Witch thing was, I think, a bit of the joke from earlier. Like, no, she has no name. And when you think about it, it's weird. They have no name for her. Although I have read that
I never
Kevin
thought
Feige.
of that.
Yeah, I mean, there are other characters that they never mention the name. Like Captain Marvel in her own movie, they never call her Captain Marvel. They didn't call her in Endgame.
They didn't call her that, but they called Jude Law, like they flirted with the name with Jude Law, right?
They did. I think technically
Marvel or whatever, right?
Well, Marvel, that whatever. Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Anyways, like the casting of Evan Peters is like they know what they're doing. Is this the multiverse? I mean, I don't know. Like it's strange. So, I mean, my initial thought was, like earlier with the dog, right? Like she said, I can't bring someone back from and she seemed pretty genuine saying like, no, I can't do that. That's beyond my power. The kids were kind of like pushing her like, but you can fix anything. And so my interpretation of this was that no, she can't bring back the MCU version back alive, but for whatever, somehow she is able to pull some version out of the multiverse. And maybe it's that guy. I don't know. It could be the multiverse of madness. With all like the casting stuff that's been going on with Spider-Man, and Elizabeth Olsen is going to be in Doctor Strange 2, maybe. But this seems like this opens a whole can of worms already. Like to introduce mutants this way, it seems odd.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that Deadpool 3 is going to be in the MCU. That's been confirmed. I know Patrick Stewart, he said that he had talks with Kevin Feige a while ago after the Disney acquisition of all the Fox properties and stuff. But it just seems like, I don't know. I feel like there's something else at play here, because that is a huge, messy situation to open up the door to mutants. At the same time, they don't do that type of red herring all the time. They kind of did it with Mysterio. They sort of they dangled that little thread out there in the marketing, and then it was all just a bunch of hooey. To do that again, I don't think they're going to do that. But at the same time, I can't imagine that be like, yeah, especially considering how bad the last few movies were. I don't think they want to.
Yeah, they all sucked. Every single one of these new X-Men movies sucked.
You think the New Mutants are going to just stroll onto the set of WandaVision? I don't think so.
I haven't even seen that one, but I did enjoy this Quicksilver in those movies. That was
he was actually the best part of like this new class generation, although he actually wasn't in new class. But
First Class was a pretty good show. He wasn't in First Class, but it was but he was in Days of Future Past, which was also
that's what I meant. Not First Class.
But the other ones after that are horse shit.
Yeah, they're all not good in my opinion. Fassbender's good in the first one, but I did enjoy Quicksilver in these scenes. So in whatever he was in, the Quicksilver.
Yes.
Anyways, go ahead.
So, but yeah, to make a long story even longer, I don't know what the play here is. I think as far as as sitcom world goes, he's going to be the wacky uncle.
He's going to be John Stamos and Joey and maybe Kramer. Like he's the
all that wrapped in one.
Wacky. Yeah. All wrapped into one.
So any other comments, Jeff, on this?
Well, no, what I love the most, I love being stunned, and I was stunned when I saw this motherfucker show up in the show, because they're clearly playing it up. Comes at the door, and we're watching it. And then
you think it's kick-ass, but then it's not kick-ass.
Well, no, I don't think it's kick-ass, because I didn't think it was the brother.
I thought it was the brother when they showed the back of the head, right?
What? No, I was like, what old motherfucker is this? This is Michael Douglas? Like, who's showing up here?
What do you mean? Oh no, those are intentionally frosted tips. Come on,
that's right.
Yeah,
and based on her reaction.
Okay, yeah. Give me a fucking break. We know who it is now, right? So just chill the fuck out. I didn't know right away. I'm trying to figure out who this gray-haired motherfucker is. And I'm sitting there, and Carly's like, oh shit, is that her brother? And then right as she says that, the camera switches, and I see his face, and she didn't recognize the actor. And as soon as I saw his face, I'm like, oh fuck. So that's what happened. So Yeah, all right. I didn't call it before. Sorry.
But the only question I have is, didn't this last shitty X-Men movie say that he's the son of Magneto?
Well, he is
Now-
the son of Magneto.
That in
So
the
then
comic book, that is.
So she's also the daughter of Magneto?
Well, it's odd because
in a different
in
universe,
those movies
perhaps.
he had a sister, but it wasn't a twin in the Fox movie.
That's right.
But in the Marvel movies, like it's got to be some other dude that's not Magneto. That I guess.
Yeah, so this is kind of, I guess there's kind of one, if this is the multiverse, there would be one multiverse where they would be related and who knows who the parent is. She's manufactured this guy. I don't know.
She just recast him. I think they're just doing a bit here. That's what I think.
But it's just
I
weird.
don't know.
But it's just
I
weird
don't
from
think it's a
Wanda's
bit.
perspective. Why would she?
Because that could be any. It could be any actor. Why choose this actor just for fans like us?
I don't know. This can't be their way of introducing the X-Men into the MCU. They're not going to backdoor it like this unless they can't be doing it that way. So that's why I think this is just okay. When the Spider-Man movie came out and it was all multiverse. I mean, even not to yank my own chain, but before the movie came out, I'm like, okay, they're not doing multiverse shit here. There's something else is going on. I don't think they're going down the multiverse route because I just don't think that's their. I don't think that's their bag. And I know the next Doctor Strange movie is called Multiverse of Madness, but I don't think it's their bag to be doing multiple universes here. It's cheap and, it's fine for the comic books. I just don't think they're doing that. I don't know
I'm
what
not
this Quicksilver
sure.
business is.
I don't know if that tracks. Because the next Spider-Man movie, how do you explain all that casting?
Well, I can't explain all that casting.
Just be careful because I don't know anything on the casting, so I'd like to keep that under wraps.
It doesn't mean it doesn't, but all of that casting, that doesn't really mean much for the future of the MCU. I think that might mean more for the future of the Sony universe of Marvel characters or whatever they're fucking calling it. But I really don't think that has much of a bearing because I think it's too confusing for audiences. And one thing I think I like about Kevin Feige is he isn't the kind of guy to take the cheap way out. And multiverses are a great way of just doing whatever and okay, this happened, this didn't happen, and doing all that bullshit. I think it's too confusing, and I don't think it's narratively satisfying, and I don't think he's going to go that way because he knows that. That's what I think.
As I said before, 60s Spider-Man needed to be there, but I didn't get it again. When he's slowly walking towards you with his,
I mean,
you still might.
You still might. I'm holding out hope, but
you don't. We have no idea how crazy this next Spider-Man movie is going to get.
According to Tom Holland, the most ambitious superhero movie ever made.
Yeah.
And what does he know?
Well, also, I think you'd be hard pressed to find an actor who doesn't talk up their superhero movie in such a way. It's like
exactly.
We're doing something totally different that you've never seen before,
never done,
and that's always like before they go on the junkets. But they're talking up the movie, but they really can't say anything. They're going to say stuff like that.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. But that's kind of why I'm skeptical of the whole multiverse thing, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. But I just think it's a whole load of horse shit, and I don't think they're really going to lean into it. But that's just one man's opinion.
Okay, so why don't we go into we're in an hour and a half here, so why don't we go into our final thoughts? But before we do that, Jeff, I will ask you, and Nathan, you too, if that door opened and it was Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier, and that was the intro to X-Men, would you be more forgiving than when
100%. 100%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, forget this Evans Peter mofo. If it was Patrick Stewart, you got your heart on, you're ready to go.
Are you kidding? Absolutely. Yeah. I'm rock hard for Patrick Stewart as Professor X in the MCU. Are you kidding me? The fuck out of my face with that. Yes, absolutely.
It's not about him in the role. You talked about that's the introduction. You were kind of worried that this is your introduction to X-Men in this backdoor way. My question is, if that was Patrick Stewart, would that have been acceptable?
Yep.
Okay.
Of course it would have been acceptable. Are you kidding me? Get the fuck out of here. Yes.
All right, Nathan?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think I would. I'm not sure if I'm quite as enthusiastic about it as Jeff. But as far as this being, I'm not really convinced that this is how they're going to bring in mutants, but I still think there's a multiverse component to it somehow. But if it was Patrick Stewart that just showed up, that would have been great, but only if in the next couple of episodes, it's just a full sitcom. just a full sitcom with Patrick Stewart in there the whole time. Because he's got great comedy timing.
He does,
Like, and
yeah.
he could cut it. He can cut it.
Yeah. That'd be great.
All right.
Oh.
Well, all right. So let's get into the final thoughts. So Nathan, your thoughts on this episode? Recommend? Where does it rank for you in terms of what you've seen so far?
I enjoy it. I think what some of my criticisms are is I wish we had more of a full, like an 80s episode. I would be surprised now at this point, given where we are in the series, if we will get a full episode the way we did in episodes 1 and 2. So I'm a little disappointed in that because we didn't get a full 80s episode. Because like Jeff sort of said, it was a little generic, but overall, I think I liked it. I liked we're deepening the mystery, the weirdness. Elizabeth Olsen was great in this. Paul Bettany was really great in this episode, especially towards the end when he's freaking out and he's angry. So, I've got my quibbles with it, but I liked it. I'd recommend it, and I'm still hooked on the show. I can't wait to see next week's episode.
Jeff.
Well,
actually, I'll let you wrap it. I'll let you.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll just go quick. Yeah, I dug it. Same thing as you guys. I'm still into this. I'm really enjoying the two leads. Nathan, you touched on it. I really thought Paul Bettany was the strongest one in this episode. He was fantastic. When he was freaking out, when he was questioning everything, even his humorous bits here, I thought he brought his A game. But I do agree with you guys that it's unfortunate that the casualty now is that we did not get the full 80s episode. I don't think we're going to get any episode is in the sitcom territory. I think it's going to go half and half until it finally, they leave the reality and it's all done. So that's really unfortunate. The one problem by doing it this way is that the 80s sitcom format did feel generic. They did not have enough time to flesh it out and make the stories interesting. Part of that was also because the kids were there, so you didn't get enough interaction between Wanda and Vision. Not that we don't really want the kids not to be there. That's just the unfortunate reality and consequence out of it. But overall, I dug it. I thought it's fantastic. I can't wait for next week. It's a great show. Asking really good stuff, even though I had some conflicts with some of the stuff that we've already talked about. But Jeff, you have the last word.
I mean, we've all said it is, no matter what we thought of the individual episodes up to this point, we can't wait for next week. And what an accomplishment for a show. Usually I'm good, you want to see next week's episode, but we want to see next week. For all failings of the episode, it's leaving us hanging, and you really got to credit them for that. I really wish that they hadn't started the series in the 50s. I think that might have been an error, just because I think the audience for this show is kind of like us, guys in our age range, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to be more familiar with the sitcoms in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. So I think I don't know, but maybe you guys can tell me what you think, but I was really clamoring for when we got to this week, to the 80s week. And I was expecting that last week, and we just got the MCU week last week. We finally got to the 80s week this week, and it was kind of generic. And yeah, now I guess we're not really going to get those dedicated episodes.
No.
So it would have been really nice to have episodes 1, 2, and 3 just sort of start in the 80s, 90s. That would have been great. I think that would have been much better,
That would have been interesting because it also fits.
Right?
It also kind of fits more. You really don't know her age, but I would assume that Wanda in MCU universe is like in her late 30s or
they do.
She was born in 1989. 89.
Oh, so she's younger.
Episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
But she's in her young 30s, right? So.
Yeah. So I guess I assume if they ever touch back on it, is like in Sokovia, she was, they're poor, right? So they would have been watching reruns of all this bullshit when she was a kid, But it still seems maybe 10 or even 20 years too early even for her. Like, that's kind of like where I'm like, man, I could have done so much with shit that we knew. So that's kind of too bad. But, and you guys said it as well, like Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, especially in this episode, they were so fucking good. And consider a little screen time that Paul Bettany has and what he did in those barest moments, man. He was so good. And I hope that we get to see more of him past this series because, man, he's great. Yeah, it's a good episode. disappointing that the framework, the sitcom itself, it was too generic for me. They were going for family ties and growing pains, but because the family union didn't match those, it wasn't really evocative of either of those shows at all. And it's kind of a shame. And that's sort of the risk they're taking here. I was hoping that, and maybe we'll do this. Like what I was kind of anticipating was that the squad on the outside, Kat Dennings and FBI dude and Captain Rambo, were gonna like go back in and be part of the show, and they'd be like the Friends or the Seinfelds or those guys. They'd be part of the show. Like I think that would be fucking great. They should have done that. That would have been better.
We've got 4 episodes left. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything.
So what you're saying is that's what's going to happen.
Actually, I don't know, because actually the marketing material has only shown the more modern sitcoms.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm under the distinct impression, based on some questions that were, well, I don't know. I mean, when you ask these actors and stuff, like they're like, well, can't really talk about it. I do think, though, that based on what I've seen, there is some element of part of their mission is to go back inside, and that it's not going to be a linear progression from like, oh, we had 80s, we'll have 90s, we'll have 2010s. I think there's something else in store for us. Because I said this last week, where like you have like 2 of these actors, like Kat Dennings and Raymond Park. I mean, they were sitcom actors. I'm not saying you're going to have a full episode, but I still think there'll be like kind of a fun nod to it in some way. But I have none of the marketing material I would actually suggest that they're part of any sitcom. I just feel like that'd be a wasted opportunity. But I do think there is some element of them trying to get back inside the hex.
Well, yeah, the hex, which is a good play on words. Well, let's hope it happens. So
the other part of it is that in the comic books, her powers are called hex powers. That's the other.
Yeah, because she's a witch.
Nice nod.
She put the hex on you. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, it's
there
weird
you go.
because she's a mutant, but her mutant powers are like magic. I don't know. Marvel comics are fucking weird.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, guys, we're at an hour and 40 minutes, so let's wrap this up. I think that does it for today. Thanks, guys, for coming, and like always, can't wait till next week to review the next one.
All right, sounds good. Can't wait.
Can't wait. Be great.
All right, you guys have yourselves a good night.
Later.
All right. See you next week.